The road twisted like a serpent through the looming shadows of the Appalachians, its asphalt surface barely visible beneath the growing tendrils of fog. As Megan's car bumped along the uneven path, a shiver traced a line down her spine, settling into her very bones, like the chilling, moist air creeping through the vents. The town of Ravenswood emerged out of the foggy gloom like a relic forgotten by time. Its buildings stood silent, their wooden facades peeling as if in quiet resignation to the elements. Even the few visible faces peering from behind curtains seemed etched with caution and a hint of something darker, something that tightened the air into a noose of tense anticipation. The town square was eerie in its simplicity, dominated by a statue of a lone raven, its eyes glossed over by age, gazing eternally into the non-existent sun. The air carried a metallic tang, as if the very atmosphere remembered blood spilled long ago. Megan stepped from her car, the sudden crunch of gravel beneath her boots echoing ominously. The sound underscored her isolation, reverberating in the stark silence that clung to the town like an unwanted guest. Her breath hung visible in the air, a fleeting ghost, marking her space in this place that already felt like it might swallow her whole. Megan made her way toward the only inn in sight, a squat building with a gabled roof and ivy crawling over its face like dark veins. As she pushed open the door, a bell tinkled, far too cheerful for the room it heralded. Inside, the smell of musty wood mingled with the scent of something sour, earthy, reminding her of decaying leaves left too long on a forest floor. The innkeeper, a stooped figure with eyes that seemed to hold secrets like moths trapped behind porous paper, greeted her with a nod before lapsing back into silence, a wall of reticence standing firm. As evening draped its shroud over Ravenswood, the shadows deepened, devouring what little light the houses dared emit. Megan sat in her small, dim room, scanning through notes and articles that seemed inadequate in the encroaching gloom. Her investigation began with familiar touches, missing persons, odd reports, and now this, opening to something more unnerving. She recalled rumors of the hollowing, a whisper through community forums, a myth turned into hurried, disbelieving words. It was said to be a purging, a cleansing by the entities of the unknown, a cycle gripping the town every generation. A sudden chill rushed through the open window, bringing with it the faint sound of something dragging across the pavement outside. The noise was accompanied by the softest hint of decay, reminiscent of autumn and an old forgotten graveyard. Her skin prickled, her heartbeat racing against the pressing silence. She closed the window slowly, the latch snapping shut with an echo of finality. The sensation that someone, or something, might be watching her settled in her mind. She rubbed her arms, willing away the goosebumps, hoping to dismiss the growing feeling of not just being an observer here, but somehow deeply entangled, spider silk binding her to the mysteries within Ravenswood. Her dreams were a tapestry of fragmented fears, flickering shadows, and whispers that scraped across her consciousness. Each time she awoke, the darkness seemed heavier, oppressive. It clung to her, as tangible as the dampness in the air, as though Ravenswood itself was knitting its secrets around her soul. With morning came no relief, only a thick fog that swallowed the world, a muted beginning that contrasted sharply with the electric tension within her chest. Determined, Megan stepped out into the waking town, ready to face the whispers that had brought her here. The streets remained eerily quiet, the townfolk's eyes averted, as though reluctant to let the light of their lives touch hers. Yet She felt their stories waiting. Truths buried in shallow graves beneath the weight of past and forgotten fears. As she walked deeper into the heart of Ravenswood, the sensation of stepping into a trap she hadn't yet found intensified, like the slow draw of breath before a scream they all dared not make. The path to the old coal mine twisted through the gnarled trees at the edge of town, the morning fog clinging tenaciously to their branches like spider webs. Each step Megan took seemed to amplify the silence around her, the crunch of dead leaves beneath her feet echoing off the trees. Her breath came in measured, deliberate intakes, visible ghosts in the chill air. There was something heavy about this place, a history unspoken, pressing down like a woolen blanket soaked in rain. Standing before the mine's entrance, Megan hesitated, the gaping maw of the tunnel before her darker than any shadow cast by night. The timbers supporting the entrance creaked, ominously, as though whispering some ancient warning to all who dared enter. An earthy mildew scent, mixed with something acrid, something that had once been natural, but was now irrevocably tainted. Girding herself against the disquiet blooming in her chest, she flicked on her flashlight and stepped inside. The light carved out a narrow path through the abyss, flickering over surfaces that seemed almost to breathe with her touch. The air was cooler here, carrying a metallic tang that tasted of iron and time. As her footsteps shuffled across the uneven stone floor, she noticed strange symbols etched into the walls, coiling lines and jagged angles that held no place in any language she recognized. They whispered across her mind, sending a shudder racing down her spine. A noise rippled through the darkness, subtle, a sigh more than a breath, the kind of sound a child might make when dreaming. Megan's heart stuttered in her chest, her grip tightening on the flashlight. She swept the beam around desperately, expecting to confront some unseen watcher, but there was nothing, only the shadow of her fear cloaking her surroundings. Yet the atmosphere shimmered with an unseen tension, like the quivering air before a storm's break. And then the shadows began to change. They flickered and reformed, crafting images that twisted reality around her. Faces she knew intimately, her parents, their expressions frozen in that last day, smiles turned to dust in her hands. Her childhood home surfaced from the darkness, its walls warped and swallowing, emanating an inexplicable cold. She flinched away, eyes squeezing shut, breath ragged with too many memories at once. Here, deep within the mine, hidden memories clawed their way to the surface, dredging emotions long buried. A lamentation bounced off the walls, not of words, but of feeling. A loss, old and stubborn, seeping into her very marrow. Megan tried to ground herself, fingers tracing the cold rock, but the vision swarmed her, a relentless tide that eroded resolve with ghostly fingers. Yet, amidst the chaos of reconstructed childhood fears, something else lurked, a presence not just observing, but prodding, coaxing, demanding. The mine breathed it in, tendrils of the past and a darkening shadow of the present entwined. The walls closed around her in a smothering embrace, the sensation of being watched, now almost palpable. Megan fought to slow her pounding heart, knowing she could not flee this encounter with herself. She could only move forward, through fear's humid grip, chasing the elusive truths buried in Ravenswood's heart. The howl of the wind outside became a soft smirk of knowledge, teasing her for what she was yet to uncover. The morning air clung to Megan as she emerged from the claustrophobic grip of the mine, a drip of sweat trailing cool patterns on her chilled skin. She stumbled, hands steadying against the bark of a twisted oak, its gnarled surface biting into her palms. Ravenswood was still, the fog a gauzy veil whispering across the town, as if spinning tales of its own. Voices from the night clattered in her memory, unresolved echoes haunting the edges of her consciousness. Her body ached with fatigue, yet rest felt like a distant luxury. From the gloom a figure detached itself, edging toward her with hesitant certainty. Tom, the reclusive conspiracy theorist who muttered truths only he understood, drew closer, his eyes deeply shadowed like wells that drank too deeply of the night. He had seen her headed toward the mine earlier, had followed trails and unearthed his way through countless stories of the hollowing, and of those stories, his family's demise was the most painful whisper. He gestured to the worn notebook he clutched, its pages frayed and overfilled with scrawlings, a testament of his lonely crusade against forgetting. Megan studied Tom, the lines etched around his eyes, carrying the weight of sleepless nights and the raw scrape of grief. In him, she found an odd, unexpected camaraderie. Their conversation unfurled cautiously, a shared dance of knowledge and speculation, truths woven into myth by the ebb and flow of town's history. Tom spoke of the lost experiment, an attempt buried in secrecy, a folly of humans believing they could tame the fracture point between realities, a foolish reach for otherworldly energy. In hushed tones, he described his own haunting. The echoes of his family's laughter would sometimes find him across town, phantoms reconstructed from the day they'd disappeared, swallowed like dust into thin air. His voice, a brittle echo itself, broke as he revealed the nightmares, the vivid images of his daughter's tiny hand slipping from his grasp, the world tilting with cosmic wrongness. Megan felt the dizzying shift. The world seemed momentarily unsteady, as if the very ground beneath whispered secrets to her feet. Determination knitted their resolve, and Megan, driven by an urgency that thrummed in her veins, urged Tom to lead her back through Ravenswood's corridors of madness. Together, they traced the path of energy lines on fading maps, lists of names whispering like ghosts beneath their fingers. Each location teased the borders of reality, places where the air shimmered wrong, thick with a dizzying pressure that made the world sag and buckle. Time unraveled between them, each sunrise and sunset folding into its twin, losing meaning until the very construct of day gnawed at their sanity. The familiar bells marking hours in town now tolled with mocking irregularity, a jangled tune caught in a web of chaos. Megan's senses warped. A smell of honeysuckle bled into the scent of burning. Every breath tasted acrid, heavy with sulphurous loss. The quiet was a syrupy echo, each heartbeat loud and pronounced in her ears. Though the weave of reality frayed around them, an unexpected clarity emerged. A path defined by fragments of visions, of whispers from the mine, calling to the stubborn depths within Megan. The hollowing pulsed, a malevolent heartbeat she swore to silence. As darkness descended again, thick with silence, she and Tom vowed to tether the chaos, to stitch this fractured reality whole, hoping desperately to defend against the void, waiting to claim all memory of their struggle. Together they were determined to crack open the hollowing secret and end its cycle. The descent into the mine was suffused with an atmosphere of palpable finality, each step resonating with unspoken resolve. The sound of their footsteps muted in the suffocating darkness, a blackness that seemed a living, breathing entity on its own. Megan gripped the flashlight tightly, its trembling beam barely penetrating the dense suffocation of shadow. Beside her, Tom's breath escaped in nervous undertones, the rise and fall of his chest a testament to the tension knotting his insides. The memory of ancient warnings echoed against the timbered walls, whispering tales of folly. The air within the mine was thick, heavy with a chill that seeped into their bones. A metallic tang lingered, akin to the taste of stale blood on a bitten lip. As they ventured deeper, the mine seemed to hum, a low, resonant chord that vibrated through their very cores, inducing a dizziness that twisted the perception of up and down. Claustrophobia clung like a shroud, compressing reality into a singular focus as they approached the heart of the hollowing. Megan could feel her resolve quivering, a flicker in the unending abyss around her. They ventured toward a cavern where reality warped and twisted like molten glass, the molecular structure of light itself bending into chaotic reflections. Megan paused, catching sight of a twisting tendril of shadow that curled around her wrist like a serpent. Her blood sang with adrenaline, the hairs on her neck prickling in the presence of something far older than fear. Tom's gaze flickered through the dark, catching hers, a wordless exchange that communicated the gravity of their decision. Together they pressed forward, feeling the growing weight of another presence straddling their every move, oppressive and all-consuming. At the center, where the cavern widened into a chamber, the air pulsed with a dread-inducing rhythm. Shadows coalesced into a figure, a manifestation of humanity's darkest fears, brought to malevolent life. Its form was fractal, shifting, never static, composed of countless faces etched with grief and terror, like the impression of anguished phantoms drifting through time. Its eyes, deep pools of nothingness, latched onto theirs with a force that threatened to unravel the sanity tethering them to reality. Megan's heart slammed against her ribs, fear clawing at her resolve, but she stood firm, fueled by a determination wholly her own. The entity exhaled a guttural sound, an incantation of despair that vibrated through the chamber, resonating with the unspent agony of 1,000 lost souls. Megan's knees buckled beneath the weight of its despair-laden presence. Yet beneath the shadows, within the substratum of fear, she felt the flicker of something more, an ancient power bound to their realm by fragile threads. Realization dawned, illuminating the path they needed. Accepting her fate, she drew upon a reservoir of courage she never knew she possessed, stepping forward with an intention infused with resolve. She shouted, her voice a fractal of hope, piercing through the oppressive gloom. The entity recoiled, taken aback by human defiance. Time slowed to a cosmic crawl as Megan thrust herself against the creature's void, challenging its dominion with an offering of her own spirit. In that moment, the forces binding it to their world shivered, rendered vulnerable by the raw force of human choice. Tom surged forward, clutching the symbol-laden talisman, a relic of forgotten power, and slammed it into the very heart of the entity. The room shook with ethereal rage as cords unraveled. With a scream that fractured the air, the entity convulsed and disintegrated, a silence following that smothered existence. The chamber around them began to collapse, the mine quaking in tandem with the departure of its hidden tormentor. Tom and Megan scrambled toward the exit, leaving behind whispers of lost fears echoing into the void they had conquered. Emerging into the pale light of dawn, lungs gasping for air, they stumbled back into Ravenswood, the town reshaped by their struggle. Altered and alive, they stood on the precipice of new beginnings. Megan felt a profound shift, a hard-won bravery taking root within her soul, while Tom, his past finally exorcised, found the grace of peace shaping his steps. As Ravenswood began its slow dance toward recovery, the shadows of the hollowing ebbed into myths and whispers. Yet the air still hummed with a warning, its watchful promise woven into the fabric of time itself, a reminder that some truths might only sleep, never fully vanquished.